Welcome. I'm glad you're here. And before we begin, allow yourself to slow down for a moment. Today is Christmas, or at least that quiet part of it that so often gets lost beneath the noise. And if these calm verses and reflections bring you a little peace, feel free to subscribe, not out of obligation, but as a gentle reminder to return to moments like this. Today, I want to read a verse with you that is almost silent, easy to overlook, and yet it carries an entire world within it. From the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, verse 7, "And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in cloths, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn." Perhaps you have heard this verse countless times. Perhaps it feels familiar, like a scene you already know by heart. And still it is worth pausing right here, because few verses describe so quietly and yet so radically how God enters the world without a stage, without space, without attention, not at the center, but at the margins, not where one would expect, but where no one is looking. And maybe that is the first thought that can settle tonight, that Christmas does not begin with splendor, but with lack, not with applause, but with silence, not with a perfect place, but with a place that was never meant to hold something holy. There was no room in the inn, words that sound almost incidental, and yet they tell so much about that night, about Mary and Joseph, about exhaustion, uncertainty, perhaps even disappointment, because they were traveling, displaced, dependent on the mercy of others, and it is precisely in this moment, when nothing seems prepared, that hope is born, not loudly, not visibly for the world, but hidden, fragile, small. And perhaps this story still touches us because it feels closer to our own lives than we would like to admit. Because how often does our life feel like an inn with no room? Too full, too loud, too chaotic, or maybe too empty, too cold, too still. And we carry expectations with us about Christmas, about ourselves, about others, only to realize that things do not turn out the way we imagined. And right here lies a truth that does not romanticize Christmas, but makes it honest, that God does not wait for everything to be in order, does not wait for us to be ready, does not wait for the perfect moment, but comes precisely when there seems to be no space. And maybe that is the deepest comfort of this night, that the sacred is not dependent on perfect circumstances. The manger is not a decorative detail. It is a sign that dignity does not depend on location, that meaning is not created by surroundings, that light can emerge even where no one would think to look. And perhaps tonight we can ask ourselves, not theoretically, but quietly and honestly, where in our own lives there is no room right now, where we believe nothing good could grow, where it feels too tight, too messy, too painful. And maybe that is exactly the place where God is closer than we imagine. Christmas does not tell the story of a flawless beginning, but the story of a courageous arrival, of staying, of entering into the fragility of being human. And when we see candles, lights, stars tonight, they are not reminding us that everything is bright, but that a small light is enough to ensure the darkness is not alone. Maybe you do not feel festive today. Maybe you are tired. Maybe someone is missing. Maybe something is broken. And if that is the case, this night is still for you, because Christmas does not say you must be joyful. It says you are seen, even in the silence, even in the unfinished, even where there was no room. And when everything becomes a little quieter tonight, when the streets grow still, when voices soften, perhaps this is not emptiness, but space for this one thought, that hope is not born loudly but quietly, not where everything shines, but where it is most needed. And perhaps that is enough for this night. No grand conclusion, no solution, just this gentle certainty that you are not forgotten, that this story reaches into your life as well, and that Christmas begins exactly here, in the silence, in the night, in a moment no one announced, and yet one that continues to carry us, even now.